Now my charms are all o'erthrown, and what strength I have left's mine own, which is most faint. Now 'tis true I must be here confined by you, or sent to Naples. Let me not, since I have my dukedom got, and pardoned the deceiver, dwell in this bare island by your spell. But release me from my bands, with the help of your good hands. Gentle breath of yours my sails must fill, or else my project fails, which was to please. Now I want spirits to enforce, and art to enchant. And my ending is despair, unless I be relieved by prayer, which pierces so that it assaults mercy itself and frees all faults. As you from crimes would pardoned be, let your indulgence set me free. Hello everyone, welcome to the channel. I'm James here. This channel exists to discuss the story of the movie Critic. This channel exists to discuss my relationship with Quentin Tarantino. I've written a novelization of my experiences. I am the reason that Quentin canceled the movie Critic last April. Right? And the two of us have been entrenched in a legendary psychic siege going on 2 years now. And what I say about that, and I'm not going to go on and on because this is my second video today, is that I got a comment, I read a comment from a guy who said that he had also written Quentin, and I felt really bad for him, because of course, it's not. I didn't just write a letter, I don't, me and him were on different sort of levels, and I do understand his frustration over not getting anything, right? That I wrote 10 letters before he announced Brad Pitt was playing the role and stopped accepting my mail. I think it could deep, 100%. But I felt bad for him. I felt like he was maybe bitter at me for having a palpable story. Anyway. What I'll also say, before I begin reading on the novel, and I found my place, and where are we? We're at 432 or 479. Right? So we're just 45 pages away. Right? But what I'll say is that I didn't even mention, right, when I quoted this book at the last video that I made, that he did the same thing to me when I was in LA. Right? He convinced me to leave the West Hollywood Library and go to Actors Equity in North Hollywood. Right? And he knows the town. He knows that there's houses like the ones in Pasadena in this book. Right? And he was going to direct me into handcuffs. Ha 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 ha. Oh, look how crazy he is, right? It's a sick, right? It's a sick spell. Very clever. Right? If you're trusting. Right? But his goal was to say, oh, see, look how fucking crazy this guy is. Right? I'll cut to the chase. He failed. Right? Didn't get me to really go anywhere past Actors Equity. He got me to go to Actors Equity. And then when he was go straight, I was like, nah. You're a fucking millionaire. You can pick me up. So you don't want to, right? So you get it, right? Right? He was attacking my mind in a palpable way to lead me to handcuffs. So he could say, that's what you get for fucking me. And so in that way, I don't hate him for it. Right? That he saw my turning my back as an attack against him. That's right? I see it as me following his lead. Right? It's an attack against his ego. That's what it is. And he said, oh, okay, this guy, okay, I see. So now I can do this. Right? And so everything that he's done has led to the novel that I'm reading from now, Building a Coven. Right? It's all the same tactics that are espoused in this book. Right? Though it doesn't show you how, right? That's why this channel exists. Right? And if we're being completely forthright, if we're just all on equal footing in the world, I don't know how he does it beyond I have an intuitive notion. Right? But until I look him in the eye, right? In this temple of Baphomet, then I have no idea. Right? I only have a whisper. But he knows everything that I do. He knows exactly how I do it. Because he's been doing this a long time. Right? My mind is mine. Right? And so he stole all his power over my mind. And in that way, I've written a novel of our experiences. You all know how I feel, that I live in perpetual anxiety. I'm well in my rhapsody, going through the motions of being on the street in the middle of Tennessee, right? No resources, no money, just a pen, a bunch of notebooks, a backpack, walking miles, many miles each day, right? For a time under this delusion. But now it's just been revealed to me, right? That Trey Anastasio doesn't give a fuck who I am. Very funny, got me good, right? And so, I'll pick up where I left off. 1 second. The future looks bleak. No beds in the shelter. No way to get in touch with my father. The weather gets colder and more dangerous with each passing hour. I see only despair and suffering. I posted my letters, and now, sitting in an uncomfortable chair in the Humboldt Public Library, I wish I had never been born. I am very proud. I'm told as I cry not to worry, that I'll find somewhere to land, and that they're all watching over me. I tell him I'll never give up my desire to play the role, and he says he knows, that my devotion means so much to him. We're all upset. Everything should have gone any other way. I belong nowhere. The eternity of the blank page is my only sanctuary. Nowhere else. Apologies, tears, suicide, hope, insight, despair, death. What is tomorrow but now? What is now but yesterday's tomorrow, 1 year removed? All of my thoughts feel hollow. My emotions feel weighted, feral, disjointed. I am adrift, all but evaporated, one foot in the grave, the other in heaven, bifurcating me into oblivion. Seeing it all, Alistair pleading for me to believe him, that it isn't bullshit. It all seems trite. The why? They must be exhausted as well. Libraries seem prisons to me now. My isolation so sublime, I've enslaved myself to books. Performance, and for what? To write? Why does it seem so dull, so miserable? I've been arguing with my sister for some time. I'm trying to land somewhere. She sees me as ill. She is very judgmental, and often holier than thou, but I love her. I wish I was anything other than what I am, an interstellar alien wizard that belongs nowhere. To paraphrase Chekhov, if she were a simpler woman, I should be a happier man. Brittany says she is in therapy with Olive, her special needs youngest daughter, but she isn't ignoring me. She wants to help, and knows I am in dire straits. She has been a mother her entire life. It breeds, if I'm completely honest, an arrogance or self-centeredness, not out of pathology, out of necessity. Any mother, especially one of many, becomes by default the center of attention in all the children's lives. A maestro of a sort. It isn't a huge leap in logic to connect these dots. The woman Often. Never sees it. Just had a nice encounter with an older retarded gentleman named Michael. He invited me to church. When he asked me where I went, and I said, well, nowhere. But I had the Lord in my heart. He recommended his place of worship, Sugar Creek, and recited the times of the service. White, glasses, bald and gray beard, domineering beer gut, staunch, stocky frame, eyes that hold no secrets. His blissful ignorance is intoxicating, if sad. 12:27. 9 minutes to perfection. The weather is nice outside, I can tell. Though I loathe the open sky for now. I am too much in the sun. A black man, tall, stocky, bearded, just opened the door and entered wearing redneck badass macho man Randy Savage sunglasses. He looks ridiculously awesome. Everything drags. I've exhausted myself. All I see is evil. When I look in and consider it all, I know there's much to say. But what it is, as perfection approaches, eludes me. Any second now the minute will change, and the necessity of urgency will be more manifest than now. 12:36. I didn't create it. But perhaps I'm the only one to consider its existence. But it is now, the perfect minute, sealed hermetically in numeric order. Perfection. My sister says she'll pick me up on Wednesday. And I'll be in the shelter in Florence. What a fucking mess. They, Alistair, tell me I am about to land, and that I have to use this condition as motivation. I had a vision yesterday, last night, of a wand giving birth. The interpretations are myriad, manifold. The most obvious answer is that she was never pregnant at all. It is a fucked up mind game. Easy. I should eat, get some sun. I'll walk. Tears as the simple black man quips about time when you have children. And blessed me with God. I think I'm due for a miracle or a lightning bolt if God blesses me much more. Back in the library, it is 2 o'clock. I walked to the nearest store that takes food stamps, spent too much on pure junk food, and shoveled it into my gullet while listening to Hamlet outside. The walk gave me the feeling that all are upset. I suspect Willow doesn't like me discussing her with people, though that never stopped her from pointing to her naked ape and saying to her Philistine friends, "Look, see how peculiar." Alistair knows I didn't want to see her. I was adamant. No audience without paying the piper, without paying Caesar his due. And he rebuked me, wanted me to forgive her. And so I did. I said, "Okay, Alistair, we'll do it your way." I hear apologies. I hear she isn't evil. The pleading. It feels pathological now. To trust so completely, to be degraded and left in the wilderness of Middle America. I understand, she tells me. You're lying better. You have no sanctuary. You mean the sanctuary of the soul? She's raging, either at herself or as a performance piece for me. She wrecked my innocent heart into 1,000 pieces. All I see is detritus. She says I drown her in love. I want everyone to have what they want. I never assume I am what will make anyone happy. Least of all, a woman who has the world at her fingertips. But she said to the contrary, and out of that same trust, I offered her father when I refused to see her. I said, "Okay, if that's what you want, I'll love you more than anyone else can." As I am here, and she is there, and she never spoke to me in person a single time and corrupted her body to spite me, allegedly, in sincere consideration, it is obvious and evident that what I offered meant nothing. That I am a peculiar oddity, and like her father refusing to explain certain aspects of his film, once she siphoned all the raw data out of my servers, spiritual, emotional, psychological, I deflated. The nitrous oxide only gets you high when the balloon is full. Yet is she always on my mind? Is our connection anything less than sublime? Substantial? A fucking dumpster fire? Or is it just me buried in bullshit? Total insanity. All I can say is that it appears she doesn't understand love. She understands these lofty magnetic forces, but has cheated the ferryman. This type of nepotism is by far the worst. To feel entitled to steal and peruse as you see fit the treasures and malignancies plaguing a person's heart, soul, and mind is a dangerous game. Every cell in her body has consumed all of her psychic malevolence, and only God knows what will transpire. That she has resources, limitless, gives her that extra cushionage excuse to continue in her depravity. I know it cuts right through her when I write or scream at her. She is a petulant child with a whore's personality, a flat, tacky, one-dimensional dumb bitch who has no choice but to siphon good from anyone else by these base occult tactics from time immemorial. Because she, of herself, of her own free will and identity, has nothing of value to offer the world, save this peculiar document wherein I embed her evil for the world to see. And true, this book may be good, great even. She earned her place by being the opposite. Another county library. I'm the only bum in this one. The stacks, I'm sure, reflect the tastes of the readers who frequent this establishment. Formulaic pulp, bad lighting, tacky furniture, thick southern drawls, though a thought occurs. You can gauge a lot about a town based on how the people who live there behave. Here I see much kindness, little selfishness, love, an overabundance, if rooted in ignorance, which is true in any of these podunk towns between Nashville and Memphis. Conversely, what do you reckon the average disposition is for the populace between Manhattan and Philadelphia, or Los Angeles to Santa Barbara? Kind, simple, loving, God-fearing, or pure fucking snark, cynicism? She's proven it 1,000 times over. She's never been sincere a single day in her life. It is pitiful in the worst way. I suspect in her heart, in that last grain of sand that represents truth, beauty, and goodness, she is as lonely as I am. All of her relationships are forged through sarcasm and irony. No rest, no camaraderie, pure pretension. What a sad, miserable existence. I know I must be the only one to see the truth of what she is. I don't think she adjusted the procedure, which I could guess was her misstep. Though she had no means. She only knew what was on the page, which is quite a lot, but I would guess, as far as everyone else is concerned, however many victims, hundreds, I would guess, thousands even, that most people are incredibly dull and offer little in those most secret parts of fortune. Their proximity blinded them, or they never really saw her. The most ordinary people care little for the extraordinary. And though actors and show business types are professional chest puffers, we all know how vapid a lot of them are. Obviously, her father is, in fact, extraordinary. The proof is all there on the celluloid. Though obvious, too, he has his demons, his predilections towards sorcery, like father, like daughter. His wife, her father, they, Alistair and Annabella, now have 2 small children and are doing it all over again. To what end? Does a similar fate await both of them, doomed for a certain term to be listless like Big Sister, aimlessly roaming the mortal coil, offering nothing beyond exaltation? How could he not want her to find herself? How could a father let a child languish in such a way? I'm not a monster, or a cynic monk. I know Alistair was as poor as me for a long time, too. And I can understand wanting your progeny to be comfortable. But comfort and sloth are 2 different things. She is a gluttonous vampire devoid of purpose. If I was asked to estimate, I would say, as of now, a wasted life. Let he who is without sin cast the first stone. I know I could say the same of me. Something about nihilistic balance, perhaps. 91 pages written. 93 really. But 2 of the pages were torn out and mailed as letters this morning. It is a Herculean labor. A rhapsodic fervor which is poured out of me over this week. In truth, it is far more. I write every day, I have my entire year's writing in this bag. Maybe 7 of these books. 8, 9. I once sure. Only one of them is blank. This one has 7 pages remaining. Others also have many pages torn out as letters to various heroes of mine. But all of the rest, every one, there exists not a single available line on any of them. 2 more nights, tonight and tomorrow night, in the elements. Lamentations. I'll stop there. So, it's a conversation, right, about the movie Critic. That's a novelization of my experiences, right, with Quentin Tarantino and the movie Critic, right? So, these are the games that Quentin likes to play, right? That he likes to direct people with his mind, right? As espoused by Charles Manson on Pussycat in this book, right? Right? And so the daughter, right? It's all bullshit. Everything that I said, like it's really great writing, you know, like it's really like practical and like puts you into the moment, you know. But if you're paying attention, it's me trusting him that he has an adult daughter, right? Which he doesn't, right? Unless he does. He don't want to talk to me, but he doesn't, right? Because he told me he didn't have one, right? There's the board, right? I turned it all on him on New Year's Eve, right? About 50 pages, 44 pages, 43 pages from where we are now in that novel, Building Your Coven. And I said, oh, well, how about this? How about this? How about this? He said, oh, no. There's no daughter. I don't want you to, I don't want you to keep doing that. Right? Because he's not a dumbass. Right? And so the moment that I revealed myself, right, on the perfect minute, which was mentioned, right, 12:36, I didn't create it, there it is, hermetically sealed in numerical order. Right? When I put those 2 sigils over Allison's eyes, because he told me it was this girl, Allison Tarantino, right? Then when I did everything that I did, I just touched on just a little bit at the end of this book, right? 2 interlaced pentagrams, right? 2 5-pointed stars, right? Inside of each other, they're like inverted. Boom, over both of his eyes. And Danielle's. Right? And so, right? It's hard to show you, but I'm going to show you just so that, you can understand what I'm saying. I got to mutilate my board just a little bit. Right? And so, this is Omar Emmanuel. I've talked about him any number of times, right? I cursed him, right? And everything that he did, right? He didn't do anything, right? But his ignorant supposition that Quentin is always telling the truth is the reason that he ended up on this piece of paper. But, yeah. So, what is that, right? That's a pentagram pointing up. And then there's another one inside of it pointing down. It was a little harder to see, but it's the same thing right here, right? And so they're collapsing, right, into his eye, right? And so it was one pointing up, one pointing down. It's 10 points on Quentin's eyes, right? As well as Daniela's, right? Because they're the ones that have been abusing me. But that bitch, Allison, she don't know nothing about nothing. Unless she does. Right? I've never given Ari the business end of this, just so that we're on the same page here. Right? But I told him explicitly, right, to a degree that I've never put on this channel. This is the game they were playing at. This is the game that Quentin is playing at. Right? And so, me being on the street, right, in Tennessee, right, that's that's his finest hour with these tactics. That's my point. Right, he got me to leave town, right, right? Like, oh, look how fucking strong I am. Right? Right? So, I suppose I'll stop. I don't really know what else to say. All of life is structured in a particular way. The things that Quentin does hearken to the true philosophy. Right? There it is. There's the sand. There's a line in the sand, pardon me. There's a sand line. Right? And that's, right, this thing, that line is your ignorance. You'll never circumvent it. You'll never get past it. Right? But you can stare at it. Right? And so in staring at it and saying, oh, I see you, I see, right, the dominion of my ignorance, right? That you can say, okay, I have a mind. I operate in the universe a particular way, right? And when I seek to express something novel, right, it begins in my mind and works downward, right, through the mouth, through the hands, right? This is the same way that the divine intellect manifests its knowing. Space is arranged in a particular way. The conscious awareness and resonance occupies every cubic centimeter of space forever in a state of rest. Inside of that is an infinite complex nesting of polyhedra, right? In the Copernican, right? In the Johannes Kepler sense, right? This is one example, a compound of 40 tetrahedra, 20 pointing up, 20 pointing down, right? With the vector equilibrium in the middle. And there's a bunch behind me as well. Right? That, inside of that, is the divine light of God, right? Which has no personality. It doesn't answer your prayers, right? That's the removal of hell is the removal of heaven, right? There's your ignorance, right there. When the divine light of God seeks to express its knowing, it thinks. And by thinking, if we take this as an example, it collapses the conscious field, which, if we say within this, Merkaba, star tetrahedron, right, stella octangula, right, that this represents all of manifested reality, right? And so we close this in a sphere, right? And if we say that the divine light of conscious awareness exists in every cubic centimeter within the sphere enclosing this, right? That eventually it seeks to express one part of it and begins to think and does so by contracting, right? So this geometry in the center, which is the vector equilibrium, right, is where all of this material, both structurally and metaphysically as spirit, begin collapsing towards, from out here into there. And so the dignity of God can pick any direction. Right? It doesn't have to go straight on top, straight on bottom, right? That this is, right? And the direction, right? The dihedral, they call it, the angle or angels, right? With which the divine light of God exerts pressure upon the quantum manifold, right? Which exists with it in every cubic centimeter of space, infinite complex nesting of polyhedra, right? That however it decides, right, if it's right here, right, that expresses what it materializes as manifested reality in the physical measurable world, right? So two of them putting pressure right here at these vertexes that go through the volumetric center, right? Boom, right? That you exert that, right? And so that as it's squeezing these 2 points, right, to here in the middle, right, it's forcing other magnetic densities and effluvia into the surrounding areas. You understand what I'm saying right now? And so that as the excess material in its transposition from out here to the center, right, coagulates in the spaces around it, right, that engenders electric resistance as a result of space grating against itself, right? And so as these volumetric pressures are colliding with different locales, right, they're rubbing against each other, any sort of molecular material, or even just space itself, right? And engendering heat and resistance and electricity as a result of the collision of the two, right? And eventually, that condition becomes so dense, right? So pregnant, so to speak, right? With electric potential, right? That it can no longer remain inert space and erupts into incandescence as matter, right? So when you push it from these two, right, boom, right, every point around it, this is where the matter is going to materialize. You understand what I'm saying? That the excess material from A to B through here, right, is ejected and pushed out to this vertex, this vertex, this vertex, right? And this is your nodes of electric resistance, right, which creates material matter, right? And so what does this have to do with Quentin Tarantino? Right? All instances of clairvoyance, of psychic phenomenon, of remote viewing, as in the case of Quentin, is the mind of the adept, right? Tapping into and harmonizing their conscious awareness with the frequency of the divinity which exists in every cubic centimeter of space, right? So Quentin is a powerful psychic clairvoyant who remote views anyone he so chooses in his life, right? And so, right, when Quentin or me or anyone is remote viewing successfully, the first thing that you see is a crystal clear, boom, hologram, 3D image as though projected from a film projector or a digital projector. That's when you know, right? Right? And so the second thing that's occurring, the reason that can occur, right, is that the adept and the disparate locale have harmonized the behavior of the atomic structure of the atoms comprising their brain and body with the behavior of the atoms that comprise the area that they're viewing in their mind's eye. That's right, nothing else has ever been occurring. Right? So, I was going to play a song. I will still. I don't know what happened to my pick. Damn it. Right. This is the same thing that God does. There's nothing else that's ever been occurring. Can't stress that enough. Right? Platonic forms, the allegory of the cave. Right? Russellian science, they're all saying the same thing.
See what's good in your life. Know that life is not an accident. Let me know what you think. Like, comment, subscribe, share. God bless. Have a good weekend.